Rodiaja Onathan Aldridge was a man of vision, grit, and legacy. Born to immigrants in a small coal-stained town in Pennsylvania, he had risen through the ranks of poverty to become one of the most respected real estate magnates in the country. By the time he turned 87, Jonathan's empire included over 120 commercial properties, 9 luxury hotels, and a foundation that donated millions to education and cultural preservation. He lived alone in the massive Aldridge estate, a Georgian revival mansion surrounded by 50 acres of sculpted gardens and century-old oak trees. His children Margaret, Richard, and Elise visited occasionally, mostly when it was convenient. The only constant in Jonathan's life was Sophia Reyes, his caretaker and confidant, who had been with him for the last 17 years. More than a nurse, Sophia had become a companion, steady presence as his children drifted farther away. On a quiet Wednesday morning, Jonathan summoned Edward Crane, his trusted attorney of 30 years. With a shaky but determined hand, he signed a new will. "Divide it fairly," he said, "and make sure Sophia is cared for. She's family." Edward nodded and secured the signed documents in his office vault that evening. But no one else, not even Sophia, knew of the new arrangements. Jonathan passed away peacefully in his sleep 5 days later. The official statement read, "Natural causes." A private funeral was held at the family mausoleum on a hill overlooking the estate. Dozens of dignitaries, former business partners, and employees paid their respects. The 3 Aldridge siblings stood together in a front pew, united more by appearance than affection. Margaret, the eldest, now in her early 50s, had followed in her father's footsteps, sharp, impeccably dressed in monochrome suits and silk scarves. She had always believed the company would one day be hers alone. Richard, 48, was a smooth-talking venture capitalist who played polo and politics with equal cunning. Elise, 33, was a professor of literature with no interest in business, but a quiet loyalty to her father. After the ceremony, the family gathered at the estate for the reading of the will. Edward Crane arrived late, pale and disheveled. He opened his briefcase and hesitated. "The original will. It's missing," he said slowly. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Instead, he held up an older version of the will, one drafted 3 years prior, splitting the entire estate between the 3 siblings. There was no mention of Sophia Reyes. Elise's brow furrowed. "That's not right," he told me. "He said Sophia would be taken care of." Margaret interrupted, voice cool. He was confused. "Let's not make this dramatic." Richard leaned forward, eyebrows raised, but silent. Edward suggested launching a quiet internal review. Margaret and Richard shut it down. "The will stands," Margaret said. "We're not dragging the family name through unnecessary scandal." Sophia watched from a corner, tears silently running down her face. She never asked for anything, but she knew Jonathan had promised her something. Something real. 3 nights later, Elise drove to Sophia's small cottage on the edge of the estate grounds. She brought tea, notes, and questions. "I believe you," Elise said. Sophia opened up about the final weeks of Jonathan's life. Way he'd spoken with urgency. How he had whispered, "They'll fight this, but you'll be all right." Elise vowed to find the truth. She contacted James Mercer, a private investigator known for his discretion and persistence. Mercer's first move: obtain surveillance footage from Edward Crane's law office. What they found was explosive. 2 days before the will vanished, Margaret was seen entering the building after hours. 20 minutes later, Richard arrived and spoke briefly with a courier. That same night, digital record of a vault access log had been erased from the firm's system. Mercer cross-referenced bank transfers. Richard had wired $50,000 to an untraceable account in the Cayman Islands. An IT contractor hired by Crane had gone missing. A pattern was emerging: coordinated fraud, inside manipulation. And then Sophia received a package. Inside was an unmarked USB drive. On it, a scanned copy of Jonathan's true final will. Her name was there. So was her rightful share $10 million, plus lifelong support through the Aldrich Foundation. Elise's resolve hardened. We're going to court. Before the court filings, Elise tried one last time to reason with her siblings. She arranged a private dinner in the estate's conservatory. Candlelight flickered. A string quartet played softly. Margaret arrived wearing diamonds. Richard brought his lawyer. "Why are you doing this?" Elise asked. Margaret's response was bitter. "'Cause we built this, not her, not a maid," Richard added. "And because father lost his mind. That new will is invalid." Elise stood. "Then I'll see you both in court." Outside, Mercer had already filed motions. Sophia's legal team, funded partially by a pro bono justice initiative, began building their case. Witnesses were contacted. Jonathan's financial advisor, a notary who had been present during the signing. And even Carlito, the night janitor at Crane's office. Carlito remembered Margaret's visit. "She gave me $500 to turn off the cameras for an hour. Said it was a family emergency." Meanwhile, the press caught wind of the conflict. Headlines exploded. Heiress versus caretaker. $100 million will war Aldrich dynasty cracks under greed. Family secrets emerge in fortune. Fight Margaret launched a smear campaign, hiring PR firms to portray Sophia as a manipulative immigrant who seduced an old man. Richard leaked fake stories about Jonathan's dementia. Elise went on the offensive, doing interviews, publishing letters from her father, defending his clarity of mind. The trial began on a rainy Monday morning. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, bloggers, and curious locals. Cameras were banned, but the drama inside was pure theater. Sophia sat calmly, dressed in navy blue, flanked by her lawyers. Lee sat behind her. Margaret and Richard sat with their own high-powered legal teams. The prosecution presented the digital copy of the will. They verified the metadata, timestamps, and matching handwriting. The notary under subpoena confirmed that Jonathan had signed the new will in her presence. Edward Crane took the stand. Under oath, he admitted, "I was threatened. Margaret said my career would end if I released the new will. I made a terrible mistake." Then came Lily Tran, the legal associate. She confirmed that she had been coerced into replacing the will. Her voice shook as she described the guilt. The defense attempted to discredit every witness. They called a medical expert to question Jonathan's mental health. Elise, emotionally composed, presented video recordings of her father lucidly discussing the changes in his will. Closing arguments lasted for hours. Sophia's attorney said, "This is not just about inheritance. It's about whether justice applies equally to the powerful and the humble." The verdict came after 2 days. The judge ruled in favor of Sophia Reyes and Elise Aldrich. The original will was reinstated. Margaret and Richard were ordered to pay restitution, legal fees, and faced further investigation for fraud, bribery, and obstruction. The Aldrich empire was shaken to its core. Shareholders withdrew. Margaret fled to the south of France. Richard resigned from 3 boards. Elise, now the sole executor of the Aldrich Foundation, began restructuring. Sophia used her inheritance to establish the Reyes Center for Integrity and Elder Care. Its mission: protect seniors from abuse and exploitation. Within a year, it had opened for locations across the U.S. Elise and Sophia remained close. They often walked the estate gardens where Jonathan had once sat and watched the birds. "He saw you for who you are," Elise said one afternoon. "Sudu. Justice had cost them dearly, but it had also birthed something pure. A truth too powerful to suppress. And a legacy worth more than $100 million. The end."